Well, it must be that time of the year when Scott Cawthon has to take out another mortgage because we've just got the release of the latest Five Nights at Freddy's game. A series of games made popular by obnoxious and arrogant jump scares which rely solely on the marketing of face cam YouTubers, all who have the most punchable faces on the internet. This one is called Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. But wait, this one is different. It's set in an entirely new location called Circus Baby Pizza's world, and you're a technician working late at night, completing a bunch of small tasks against an invisible RNG counter to prevent a murderous animatronic from killing you with a distorted scream. Now that I come to think of it, this one really ain't all that different anyway. This is the way it's been since the first iteration of this series, and it's obviously doing well to some extent because Scott is still making these games and people are still buying and playing them. And in all honesty, I think this is probably the best game in the series after the first one, which isn't really saying all that much, but you can see that he's tried to make Sister Location much more interactive than before. The inclusion of more voice acting throughout the whole thing makes it feel less empty and more like a real game world, as well as just adding a lot more production value to the whole thing as well.
To help you reach a more stable and relaxing frame of mind, we offer several musical selections to help make this elevator ride as relaxing and therapeutic as possible.
Compared to the other games where you were just staring at the same 3 or 4 screens over and over, I think Sister Location has maybe close to a dozen or so different environments, all of which have different requirements for success. First you come down a lift, then you crawl through a vent to access the control module, then another vent to get to the control room for the circus gallery. Didn't the guys that designed this place ever hear of doors? Anyway, on each side of the control module, you've got the Ballora Gallery and Funtime Foxy's Auditorium. The Ballora Gallery also allowing access to the breaker room, and the Auditorium being the only way to access the parts and services room. And you're going to be going back and forth between these areas frequently, as Sister Location is much more objective based. You're still going to be doing a lot of micromanaging and all that stuff, but what you're doing from night to night is always different. It's not just a matter of winding up the same music box over and over for the 50th time. The first night, for instance, is really just a tutorial where there's no real threat of death. You're introduced to your electronic guide, who is actually genuinely funny at times, and you're also given a brief explanation of the layout of the pizza world. In fact, on that note, there's a fair amount of humour in Sister Location, quite a lot of which actually works quite well. Like a strange TV show your character watches during the interludes between each night about a vampire that's forced to pay child support.
Oh, the humanity!
From the first night, things start off fairly lighthearted, albeit a little bit sinister, but as you progress, the tasks become more and more dangerous and the game becomes more frightening. In the second night, you're avoiding an animatronic named Ballora that dances around the Ballora Gallery like a ballerina and is attracted to the sounds you make, before having to reset the circuit breakers whilst trying to avoid drawing the attention of a Freddy animatronic that just happens to be in the same room. Come to the third night and you're avoiding Funtime Foxy in the auditorium using a flash beacon to get your bearings and avoid bumping into her before resetting the power in Freddy's suit. Then there's the fourth night, which is an absolute mess at the moment, and according to some people on the internet, it's unbeatable, which is a fair enough claim considering there is people who've found a game-breaking bug on the second night already. The fourth night is mostly a combination of RNG, but it's still hands down the worst night in the entire game. But at least there's a bit more variety to the gameplay, and it makes it a lot more interesting than just staring at the same looking room for 5 nights and repeating the same 4 or 5 tasks over and over in increasing difficulties. I don't want to be misleading though, it's still very much trial and error mixed with a hell of a lot of luck at times, and it still pisses me off to no end when I'm killed without knowing what the hell I did wrong. There's a few other things in this game that really bring my blood to a boil, like why are we 5 goddamn games in and there's still no pause menu? I mean, you literally cannot pause in this game. Even when it's a game over, after about 5 or so seconds, the game just reloads the night you're currently on.
Oh, the humanity!
There is a checkpoint system now which makes things slightly less annoying, so if you die you often only lose maybe 2 or 3 minutes of game time. Though keep in mind if you quit the game you're forced to replay the whole night over from scratch. In later nights though they're much more sporadic, so you've got to replay longer segments of the night as well as listening to minute-long sections of dialogue in between over and over. And why in the name of Reuben sandwiches is there still no fucking options menu? Being able to tweak the audio settings would be a huge improvement, as there's a massive juxtaposition between the sound of the general atmos and the sound of jump scares. This is something about these games that's always annoyed me, how you really do need to wear headphones to hear all of the incidental sound cues that are often vital to success. And yet they've deliberately made the jump scares about a bazillion decibels louder. It's like leaning in to tell someone a secret, then just shouting in their ear at the top of your lungs. Often when you die, you've got to play this stupid 8-bit looking minigame, which is kind of fun initially, but just annoying after the 4th or 5th time. And the whole game is this constant feeling of one step forward, one step back. I mean, you find something that kind of works, but then it's immediately offset by something that doesn't. This is again one of those games that doesn't really need the hard sell. I mean, most people are adamant about whether they love or hate the series, and it wouldn't really matter what I said about the game at all. Their minds are solely made up, as you can see from their positive Steam reviews and their whopping 20 minutes of logged game time. But if you're like me, then this entry is hardly going to win you over. It has a few scary moments and a couple of neat ideas, but it's really just the same shit you've played 4 times before. And all of the problems the other games had are still prevalent. Nothing else though, the timing and the price is right, and if you're looking for a scary game to play leading up to Halloween, then you can definitely do worse, just not by all that much.
Tune in tomorrow to find out.